The group stages of the Fantasy Club World Cup has now finished, which means we need to cast our eyes on Matchday 4 and onwards. Welcome back to FPL Mate. I am here with two guests on our panel today to talk about this Club World Cup fantasy game that we've all been enjoying, hopefully. So first of all, we've got FPL Tom back on the channel. How are you doing, Tom, and how are you finding this fantasy game so far?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. Thank you very much for having me back on the channel. I'm not doing as well as you two guys. Like, you're both smashing it out of the park. It's been a little bit hit and miss for me. A lot of the 50-50s I've got wrong, but overall, I'm still enjoying the game.
Fair enough, man. Well, I mean, listen, I don't know what your rank is exactly, but I hear there's 190,000 people playing now. So it might be a little bit better than you think it is. But I've certainly been enjoying the content, Tom. And we've also got FF Bobby, who is a bit of a hidden gem in the fantasy football world, really specializing in this Champions League fantasy format, which really translates well into these kind of these additional tournaments we see in the summer as well, World Cup, Euros, and now, of course, Club World Cup. Bobby, you're having a blinder of a tournament so far. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's going quite well. I think I've just dropped out of the top 100 now. You know, match day 3 hasn't really been too kind. But yeah, very, very happy with the way things have been going. It's been quite lucky, so I'm quite happy with it. Hopefully we can continue on for the rest of the tournament.
Yes, mate. I've had my fair share of luck this tournament, but I have to say, match day 3 was a little bit tougher, but really enjoying both of you guys as tips on the Club World Cup. Honestly, guys, anyone who is watching, listening right now, these two people are basically the two guys dominating the Club World Cup fantasy space on YouTube right now. So if you want to follow along with tips every match day, then make sure you go check them out. The links will be in the description. I won't be making any more Club World Cup videos now, so yeah, you're gonna have to find your content elsewhere. I know I said that last time, but I couldn't resist. I'm enjoying it. What can I say? I'm enjoying it. So let's talk about match day 4 onwards first of all, and I've got in front of me the projected round of 16. We are recording this on Thursday, so there's still a few games left to play. I'm just going to share this image with you guys as well, because I don't know if you've got similar projections. I got this one from Football Mate's data. I don't know if they are any good, but they seem to have a decent amount of following. Obviously, we have most of the fixtures already sorted for this next round, but it's just about those two final fixtures at the end, which is going to be the winner of Group G versus second in Group H, and the winner of Group H versus second in Group G. So kind of the inverse of one another there. So I've got it here as Juventus versus Al Hilal as one of the fixtures, and Real Madrid versus Man City as the other one. But it's not a guarantee that is going to be the case, but we kind of have to work with what we got right now, to be honest, guys. So yes, we'll see what happens in the other fixtures, but this is what we're dealing with. Straight away, let's go to you, Tom. Are any fixtures really standing out to you as, like, you know, we've got to pick 3 players from one particular team?
Yeah, I think the big standout from this one has to be PSG versus Inter Miami. It seems like a kind of a real big mismatch, to be honest. Looking already at the early kind of bookmaker data, it's like by and large the biggest kind of difference between the two. I think some are pricing Inter Miami at 15-1 to win this game already. Looking at the other ones, probably you're looking maybe 4-5-1. So I definitely think PSG, with the quality that they've got in both defence and attack, I think they're going to be the standout team to invest in for this round of the competition.
Bobby, is there any other fixtures there that you've got your eye on?
Well, I definitely would have said PSG, but I think going off of the Opta stats, I think Inter are given an 85% chance of going through as well, even though Fluminense seem pretty decent so far in the tournament. So I definitely will be looking at a couple of Inter Milan players as well.
For sure. The other fixture, I guess, that looks pretty nice of the guaranteed fixtures anyway, I guess it's Dortmund versus Monterrey. But I think most of the teams we've just spoken about may find themselves with a little bit of an issue going into the quarterfinals. And obviously, we've got unlimited transfers going into match day 4. However, we don't have unlimited transfers in match day 5 for the quarterfinals. So, are we looking at, if you pick up too much PSG players, are they suddenly going to be facing against Bayern? If you pick Inter players, they're going to be facing Juventus. Dortmund players, they're going to be facing one of Real Madrid and Man City. Potentially there, depending on how things fall. It looks like, I don't know about you, Bobby, but I kind of wish I still had my wild cards.
See, I'm not really too. I feel like PSG, for example, I feel like I'd be pretty comfortable with them beating Bayern Munich. I think I get with picking Dortmund players. Obviously, they have a much nicer fixture in round of 16 than playing against a Real Madrid or a Man City. So yeah, I do get it, but I do think there is plenty of transfers available, and the hits are still only a -3. Would definitely, obviously, try stay away from hits as much as possible, but I don't think it's as bad as it usually would be made out to be in other fantasy games.
Okay. Fair enough. So one eye on round of 16 and maybe half an eye on the quarterfinals, because there are some nice fixtures here. I did just want to bring this up briefly. Tom, I don't know if you've seen this, but again, I was on Football Mate's data, and they basically simulated the remainder of the tournament a whole bunch of times. And PSG are consistently in the final in these kind of models that they've got. It seems like PSG are in almost all of the finals for this tournament. Do you think they can go all the way?
Yeah, I definitely think they can go all the way. They should breeze past Inter Miami. I don't think even if they did face Bayern Munich that I think Bayern wouldn't cause them too many problems. I think obviously with Musiala having issues in and out of the team, I think PSG are only going to get stronger as the tournament goes on. I think they're going to get Dembele back, probably will make a cameo appearance off the bench versus this fixture. Adding him to that already strong PSG side, I think they're going to probably cruise it and make it to the final in my opinion as well. So I agree with that.
Okay. Well, we're definitely going to talk players very shortly. I want you guys to help me build a first draft for a decent looking team for the round of 16. But there's one other kind of area I kind of want to have a look at for these round of 16 fixtures, and that's the Palmeiras, Botafogo, Benfica, Chelsea situation. Because looking at that, Palmeiras and Botafogo is difficult to call. Benfica, Chelsea is maybe difficult to call. But actually, the winners of the Benfica-Chelsea game are probably going to have one of the strongest fixtures in the quarterfinals. Bobby, do you have any strong opinions on those fixtures in that kind of group of the remaining fixtures?
If I'm being honest, I think it's probably the round of 16 fixtures that I'll look to avoid the most because they are so difficult to try and call. I think with the transfers available, I think it's 4 you get in the quarterfinal. At that point, maybe I'll look to bring in whoever wins out of Chelsea and Benfica. But yeah, there's definitely a couple of gems. There's a lot of cheap options you can get from some of those teams. Obviously, with so many big teams available now, it's going to be quite hard to try and fit 15 players in with the budget, even with the extra 5 million. I have tried making a couple of drafts myself, and I am finding it quite difficult. So maybe 1 or 2, I think, for the cheap options from those teams, I think.
Okay, and finally, just looking at the fixtures, Tom, I'm looking at Real Madrid and Man City. Are they absolute no-goes, assuming this is how things turn out? Even if they don't, we might see Real Madrid, Juventus potentially as a fixture. Are these teams just to avoid totally?
I think the Real Madrid one, I probably would only have one player, but I've watched quite a lot of Real Madrid at this tournament, and they've looked extremely disjointed. Now, I don't know whether or not that's the influx of players, obviously the lack of Kylian Mbappe, new management trying to kind of, find their feet. I just think with it not being an easy fixture for this opening round, for the knockout stages that is, I think it's safe to probably only have one, maybe Real Madrid player in there, and if that is Mbappe, if he's available from match day 3 onwards. But other than that, I probably would say I'm going to avoid them and look to the kind of more stronger one-sided fixtures to target.
Makes sense. Any shout for Man City players at all, or again, not really?
Again, it depends what side of the draw they face. Obviously, if they go and win the group, They could face, Al Hilal, and I think then we probably would all be looking at Manchester City players, and I think Haaland would be a shout. I think Ederson, given the fact that if they were to face, a lesser opponent in this round, probably have a high probability of a clean sheet, and it avoids obviously delving into that Pep roulette that we've all seen for FPL and even Champions League fantasy. That Ederson at least should be a comfortable pick and should be able to get you some steady returns with those clean sheet numbers as well.
Makes sense. And the budget's gone up, so we can afford to spend a little bit more on a goalkeeper too. Okay, so that's the fixtures, or what we think roughly the fixtures might be in the case of those final 2 games. But I want to talk a little bit about chip strategy. And Bobby, I'm going to come to you for this one because I do know that you released a video on the new mystery chip. Obviously, I don't want you to spoil your own video too much, but could you give us maybe a brief overview of what the chip is and what your initial thoughts on when the best places are to use it? You don't have to do too many spoilers, but just a rough guide for us.
Yeah, so obviously 2 extra points for everyone that does qualify. I think, we were obviously talking about the quarterfinals already. There looks like there's going to be a lot of difficult fixtures. I think PSG are expected to play against Bayern, Man City or Juventus potentially against Inter Milan, so I would definitely be avoiding the quarterfinals. I think at that point you've then got the round of 16 and also the semi-final as well. I think the semi-finals a lot safer because you can split between the 4 teams and have 4, 4, 4 and 3, and that way you are guaranteeing yourself at least 7 players qualifying, which is 14 points, and considering the max that the chip can get is 22, I feel like 14 is a pretty safe option for the semi-finals. Again, you can, try and maximise it as much more in the round of 16, potentially having 8 or 9, players qualifying. But, I think there's a lot of people seem to be using it in the round of 16 where the chances of big points is higher, but I think the safe option, if you maybe want to protect your rank, the semi-final does look like quite a decent option as well.
Okay, so round of 16 if you're willing to take a risk, and I guess semi-finals if you want to get that security of points. I mean, I can't lie, I feel like I want to go for broke here. I want to go for the round of 16, go all in on PSG, Bayern, Inter Milan, Dortmund, and just see how many points we can get. That sounds like the fun way to me, but I definitely see the appeal of going a little safer on the semi-finals there as well. Bobby, we'll come back to you again, actually. If some people still have their captain chip, their max captain chip, is there a standout place to use that right now?
I think it's definitely going to be the final because you only get one chance at a captain there. Obviously, we've experienced the group stage where every single match you've got a captaincy opportunity. I think considering the max captain just captains your highest scoring player, the fact that the final only gives you one chance at a captain, it's definitely looking like the best opportunity to use it, especially if you've got the qualification booster chip, whichever you use in the round of 16 or the semis. There's not really a lot of other options for the max captain, so I think the final definitely looks like the best pick for that one.
It certainly solves a headache, doesn't it? Tom, is there any argument for using that max captain anywhere else?
No, I think maybe the strategy I was going to go for was the semi-finals. I just think usually finals are quite, close quartered affairs. I don't know if there's going to be kind of too much between 2 teams, whereas semi-finals, sometimes you get, mad score lines and kind of, more open games. So I think I'm going to play it in that one. In terms of other potential strategies, I think if people have got the wildcard left, I think playing the qualification booster this round, setting up on the one-sided fixtures, then playing the wild card to obviously build a decent team for the quarterfinals and semi-finals, I think that could be a really good play. So if you have been patient and kept the wild card, I think that's one to maybe look at for this week.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one, by the way. It looks like such an obvious play if you do still have that wild card chip, for sure. So again, go back to the max captain, safe option, final, bit riskier, maybe go semi-final. There's perhaps more points on offer in the semi-final, but it's just a case of that final, like, it's so difficult to pick out a captain. You don't know who's gonna score the points. I remember the World Cup Fantasy, it was like Mbappe versus Messi for all the points. Nobody knew who's your captain, so kind of solves that issue, doesn't it? Right. So I think we move on to players now. Let's move on to players. That's what a lot of people are probably here for. So I've got in front of me a empty team sheet. A budget of $105 million. Dollars, by the way. Can't believe we're playing a fantasy game using dollars as the currency. Americans will be very happy about that, I'm sure. But shall we just start off with who each of you believe to be the most essential players? I'll give you 2 essential players each. First name on the team sheet type guys. Bobby, let's start with you.
Hakimi, 100%. Clean sheet
Hakimi.
potential against Inter Miami. Attack and returns, definitely.
Okay, Hakimi is in. Let's throw him in there. And who's your second guy?
It depends if he's back from injury, but I'd probably go for another PSG player and go for Ousmane Dembele. If he's not available, I think there's plenty of other options you can go for, but, he's the main man for PSG and what is debatably the best fixture in the round of 16, so I feel like he's definitely one to go for.
I like it. Nice little captain option as well. Although I have to say, captained Hakimi in Matchday 3, and I'm very tempted to go for it again. It just has, if you get that goal and clean sheet, you're just looking at those crazy points. Tom, have you got any essential players for Matchday 4?
Yeah, I think if Dembele's not available, Kvaratskhelia has to be the other pick. He's probably the second best PSG attacker outside of Dembele, so that would be my first one.
And what about second?
Second, I probably would go Michael Elise. Yeah, I'm going to go with Michael Elise as my second pick.
Nice. He's been tearing it up this tournament, to be fair.
Yeah.
Let's have a look through some of these other fixtures then. Let's continue on Bayern a little bit here. Is Harry Kane back in play, considering we're probably not going to be picking too much from Man City and Real Madrid? They're obviously the big budget teams. We can maybe afford to go for someone like Harry Kane or any other Bayern players, Bobby?
I think definitely Kane is probably the best of the premium options. I think Mbappe is going to be guaranteed a hard fixture, whether that's Juventus or Man City. And, Haaland, I don't think has really been doing it on the same level. So, yeah, I think I would pick Kane if I was to go for anyone else from Bayern.
This is big budget. Any other premiums, Tom?
I guess it depends what side of the draw City fall on and who they get, but I probably would have Haaland in there. Outside of that, I do think we're probably looking at slim pickings for those premiums. I think we've kind of identified the big hitters that could go off in the round of 16.
Okay, then what about some of the cheaper guys then? I'm struggling a little bit here. I can't lie, because really the only cheap players that I'd kind of be looking at is from Palmeiras, Botafogo, maybe Benfica, Chelsea, not as cheap. But I'm struggling a little bit for cheap guys. Have you got anything for us, Tom?
Yeah, I've got Igor Jesus from Botafogo, a 4.1 million striker, currently at 5.6% selected. So hopefully with everybody, tinkering with the teams over the next few days, he could slip under 5%. But already so far this tournament, he managed to get himself a goal against PSG and scored in the opening game as well against Seattle. So I think with it being an all-Brazilian affair, quite 50-50 split, I think he could be a nice cheap option and could be a decent captaincy option for that opening game that a lot of people might potentially underestimate as well.
Yeah, it's a good point. I feel like you've got to get a captain in that game, haven't you? So I know we mentioned kind of avoiding that area of the draw, but you've got to pick someone to kind of get the captain ready for each game. Bobby, any other midfielders that are maybe a little bit cheaper that you are looking at right now?
I'll throw in one that I don't think is really considered too much, and it's going to be Caicedo from Chelsea. He's only 5.7 million, I think, 2.6% owned. And it's really one for those that are using the qualification booster in the round of 16, because you could be looking at 2 points if Chelsea qualify, 2 points for the scouting bonus, and he's getting tackle points in his 2 games that he's played. He get 4 tackles in match day 1, 5 tackles in match day 2. So you could be looking at 6 to 7 points just from him playing as he normally does. And I think at 5.7 it's a decent cheap option to go for.
Yeah, that does look pretty nice. Any love for Enzo? I feel like he's a player who is doing so well at the moment. He's only 6.2, so not too much more than Caicedo. Is he under 5%? Nowhere near. 9.4% right now. So maybe a little bit more. But he was the kind of Chelsea midfielder I think I was probably looking at the most. And you know what? Even thinking about him for FPL at the moment, Tom, like any thoughts on Fernandes and maybe for him for FPL as well?
Yeah, I've put him in my initial draft for Matchday 4. I just think he's kind of taken over the kind of responsibility in terms of goal scoring and assists from midfield. Palmer, I believe it's now 27 games in open play. He's not got an attack in return. So, usually I absolutely love and adore penalty takers. I think it's a broken thing to be targeting in fantasy games. But at the moment, it seems like Enzo Fernandez is the guy to target from Chelsea. And I think if there's a big disparity in price points when the FPL prices come out, I think a lot of people could be looking to go for him as well.
Yeah, for sure. He was only 5 million last season, or I think, what did he start? 5 million maybe. But yeah, if he's something like 6 million in the new season, like really underpriced like that with Chelsea's FPL fixtures, then that would be great. But we're not here to talk about FPL. Sorry, everyone. Let's talk about some defenders. We've not really spoken too much about defenders so far. Surely at this point is where we're going to be having a look at Inter Milan and Dortmund, Bobby.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Inter Milan defenders are quite low in ownership, and I think that's definitely a good thing for the defenders, looking at the clean sheets, and if they're under 5% owned, it's an extra 2 points. So I think it's just kind of waiting until we see, Inter Milan predicted lineup. Someone like Darmian is looking like, a pretty decent option. Bissek under 5% if he does start as well. So I've got Darmian in my current draft right now, again waiting to see predicted lineups, but I think I'd definitely be going for at least an Inter Milan player in defence that's under 5% owned.
I wonder if Ben Sabini could come back in as a pick as well. Anton, which one's better, by the way? Is there a strong opinion on? Or who's the Tom? Remind me, who's that? The fullback for Dortmund who scored in Matchday 3?
Svensson.
Is there like any argument to go for any particular Dortmund defender?
I've put Svensson in my Matchday 4 draft. I just watched the extended highlights from their game against Ulsan HD, and he was just cropping up in the box, having plenty of shots. Obviously, I know they are, a pretty weak opponent, but still, it's just that eye test and seeing the positions that he's getting into, and you're just thinking, he's got a goal, he's got an assist already this tournament that was technically an own goal. So if you want to put it that way, he's kind of scored 2 already. Yeah. And, he is over 5%, but I think a lot of people are probably not going to be looking at Dortmund defenders or Dortmund in general as a side. So I think he could be still a pretty nice pickup for this match day.
Makes sense. And I guess we've probably got to have a Bayern Munich defender, surely, Bobby.
I think with Bayern, it's quite difficult with their defenders. I don't really think a lot of them have the attacking potential that you would potentially want, but Stanisic has been the standout in the group stage. Again, another one that's under 5% owned and is probably going to keep starting. So if I was to pick anyone, he's quite cheap as well. I think Stanisic would probably go in there.
Yeah, 4.9 million, pretty nice price there. All right, well, we've almost finished our team, guys. We're absolutely killing it. We need one more defender and 2 goalkeepers. We've got a budget of 16.4 million left to complete our dream team for Matchday 4. Tom, let's give the last defender to you.
Okay, I'm going to go for... Who should I go for here? I'm going to go for Piquez. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologise if I'm not. But he plays for Palmeiras, and I'm led to believe that he is a penalty-taking defender as well.
Yes.
At 5.1 million, currently under 5% owned as well. So you're going to get that scouting bonus if he does anything. I have had him in for Matchday 2 and Matchday 3 and yet to have a penalty. Not got him in the Matchday 4 draft. So the way my luck's going in this tournament, get him in your team. I guarantee he'll be taking a penalty.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, I've had him the last 2 match days as well. It's been a nice little pick, a nice little hidden gem that I've learnt about throughout this tournament. It's always a learning thing. And we have got 11.3 million left in the bank. I guess we'll give you 1 goalkeeper each, guys. Bobby, do you want to start us off?
I will go for probably the more expensive one and pick Jan Sommer, because I think PSG are probably the most likely to keep a clean sheet, but you want to use those spots outfield. I think Inter are less likely to have outfielders, so I'll go for the Inter goalkeeper, Jan Sommer.
Very nice. I like that a lot. And Tom, finish us off with a goalkeeper. You going to go for Edison, or you got someone different in mind? You got 5.9 million, to be fair.
Oh, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of budget there. I think Kobel could be a decent shout potentially, but I'm gonna go with the Palmeiras defense. I'm liking it at the moment, and I'm gonna go for Weatherton. Currently at 5.9% selected, but again, I think with everybody having unlimited transfers, might be one that come the deadline does drop under 5%. And looking at the kind of clean sheet data from the bookmakers already, they're predicting a 40% probability of a clean sheet for Palmeiras. So it could be a nice way to pick up an additional 2 bonus with your goalkeeper. Obviously, we've got Jan Sommer there if it doesn't work out. And again, it gives you a player within that first game that you could maybe throw the captaincy on.
Yeah, I like that. It's always quite nice to go for the riskier goalkeeper first and then have the slightly safer goalkeeper as your backup there as well. Well, I have to say, guys, we've got a few differentials in this team, but it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder as we creep towards the deadline. I'm kind of hoping that like people start dropping off and stop playing, so the ownership of players doesn't move too much, but it'll be all the most engaged players that are going for these differentials anyway, I suppose. Right, let's finish off with I guess a final tip, piece of advice from each of you guys, and let's start with Bobby. One little hidden bit of gem advice for the good people at home.
I'll say I would definitely be looking towards differential defenders under 5% owned, including goalkeepers as well. The scouting bonus is essentially equivalent, 1 point less than an assist from a defender. So I think definitely looking at defenders that are under 5% owned, that obviously excluding the really high ceiling ones like Hakimi and stuff like that. If you're going to be picking defenders, I think trying to go for players that are under 5% owned is definitely the way to win.
Love that tip. And by the way, that tip, when I was speaking to you, Tom, and Fran before the start of the tournament, like you guys mentioned, just defenders and goalkeepers go for under 5% owned, and they'll smash it. That's been like the best piece of advice. So Bobby, definitely, people need to take that one forward for sure. It works. It clearly works. Tom, have you got any other tips for us?
Yeah, I'm going to say target talisman. I think it's the way that everybody should play every single fantasy game. So look for those players that you can pretty much guarantee are going to have some sort of goal involvement when a team scores. They're usually on the penalties. They usually have some sort of involvement with set plays as well. And I think I've seen it with my own team, and I don't know why I didn't listen to my own advice with the Benfica Auckland game. I didn't go for Di Maria. I went for the other midfield option, and pretty much the swing was massive. It was like a 15-point swing. So I think looking for those players that, like I said, are usually involved when the team scores, have penalties, have set plays. It is such a big kind of thing that I think a lot of people underestimate within fantasy games.
Love that. There's an absolute gems of advice in this video, guys. Massive thank you to both Tom and Bobby today. To finish the video off, let's find out, Tom, where can we find you, and what video do you recommend people watch on your channel, or maybe one that you've got coming up?
Yeah, I've just dropped my new draft for Matchday 4. But probably the best piece of content that people can do is come along to the deadline stream on Saturday. Probably be live from about 2:30, 3 o'clock. That'll be the place to come and ask you questions, get your team rated by me as well. So yeah, that'll be the number one.
Awesome, man. Well, hopefully I'll be able to join you in that stream as well, in the chat, to see what you got to say, if I'm about for that one. Bobby, where can we find you? One video that's already out or one that's coming up that you recommend for people to check out from you?
Yeah, so FF Bobby on YouTube. My qualification booster has everything you need to know if you are, still working on when you want to use that. And then my matchday 4 selection it'll be now has, clean sheet stats, goal stats, players to pick, and then obviously my team will be out as well. So that'll be out tomorrow more than likely.
Beautiful stuff. Well, guys, once again, these two people are the go-tos for Club World Cup fantasy content right now. So do not look at this channel anymore. Go check them out. And yeah, I'll be over there with you guys to check out the tips that they have to provide for the remainder of the tournament. A massive thank you to our guests today, Tom and Bobby. Links in the description for them and at the end of the video on screen. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Once again, we'll be back for some more FPL content throughout the rest of the week, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.